Okay, this is walking up the haulage cut right here that came out of the mine. And when this was in operation, the miners had a loading platform up there, and they would report for work to head down in the mines, given their assignments, and they would ride these trip cars, or even the skip cars sometimes. And the angle is so steep that when they hit that mine portal coming down this hill, they were doing about a good 35-40 miles an hour straight down. And the giant hoist cable from the hoist house, it took them down about good 3,500 4,000 feet, all the way deep underground to the loading dock, and to where they had the pocket, the loading pocket for the iron ore and the central gathering area. But this mine, the furthest it got, is about 1,700 feet underground, and it actually runs underneath part of the Wildwood Shopping Center on Lakeshore. That's how far down this mine went. So it went for a good ways. So, but this is the haulage cut right here. And it looks like you're going in a jungle. And you can still see some of the cross ties, bits and pieces of mining remains. You can see where they just cut this right out when they built this back in the early 1900s to put everything on the north side. But anyway, so move on a little bit further up here and I'll video some more stuff. Okay, that's looking back down the haulage cut to the mine, and nice and overgrown here. And what you've got up here, these concrete retaining walls, you've got all this stuff right here. Used to wonder what all this stuff was. Did not realize that about 1945, when TCI had constructed a brand new bathhouse up top, which I'm going to go see, that they had also built a concrete bridge that went over this deep ravine and went that way to the northeast, I think it is. And they cut a road down by the number 15 mine that went down the north side of the mountain and looped around, went to the hoist house, but went back down to what is now Spalding as Ishkooda Road. And this is for the miners, that they could drive up here to the top of the mountain, drive their own vehicles, and they had a passenger bridge that went actually over this cut, and the miners would drive their cars. There was a bridge right here, and they could just drive right to the bathhouse. So pretty ingenious what all these engineers thought of back then. But this is the retaining wall. This is another retaining wall, and there would be a loading dock right up here to where the miners would come on and off the skip cars. Now the haulage cut goes straight up over a trail over there and goes right up on the north side of the mountain, and that's where they had a huge loading tipple that would be on the north side of the mountain, and that's where the iron ore was deposited out off the tipple from these giant skip cars. And of course it would go down through a gyratory crusher and be placed into then what was Birmingham Mineral Railroad, and then later TCI bought this branch line of the north side of Red Mountain, and they used their own internal rail system and rail cars. And these would be taken to the Winona sintering plant, the iron ore, and from there to Inslee and even Fairfield. But this is the giant wall right here, and this wood here is probably part of the bridge network. So pretty interesting. So it's a shame they don't have historical markers up here. You know, people come up here and, you know, they're looking at this going, well, okay, there's the mine portal down there. Well, is there any history to this? There's no plaques or anything down there. Maybe one day they'll have something here in the park, but it's a real shame because, you know, how in the world would most people even know what any of this stuff is? So, okay. Okay, this is the top of the haulage cut right here. And this would have been a loading station right here for the miners. Bathhouse is up here. And the skip cars, the mine is way down below, but the skip cars would have been hauled by a hoist cable. They would come right across here. There's some foundations up here through all that jungle and privet on the very top of the mountain. And that's where the tipple would have been. And the skip car would have been pulled up there, and then it would have just been tipped over. The remains of the contents of the iron ore would have been dropped down a chute and into a gyratory crusher to the waiting rail cars of TCI, and back then Birmingham and Railroad in the early 1900s. But this right here is a trail, and this used to be actually a rail line. And they had cutoffs before they modified everything. There were cut-off rails everywhere. And you actually see there's just a section of one of the cross ties right there. But this is where the miners would have got on and got off, coming out of the mine or going into the mine to go to work. This would have been the loading dock. And there was a tally house foundation right here somewhere. I'm not sure where it was. It could have been on top of the mountain, or it could have been right here. Not really sure. But anyway, all of this here was open ore mining right here. The mountain used to go all the way up here, and you can see how much they took off the mountain. And there's a couple of old drift mine remains back in here, and of course they're sealed. But anyway, this is what it looks like now. Okay, just thought I'd video this real quick on the way to the bathhouse. This was actually also a road, but it was also a rail line for equipment that needed to be serviced and everything. There was a rail line that went all the way down to the 13 mine to the west, and there's a little bridge, a rail bridge that goes over the haulage cut, and there's foundation remains to the maintenance building. You know, they'd repair the skip cars and whatever that needed to be repaired or upgraded, you know, from being used down in the mines. But this was actually a rail line right here. So, and they could just bring any equipment up that needed to be taken down to the shop and just switch off to this rail right here and take them down. But this is one of the drift mines right here. And this probably goes back to the early 1880s. And of course it's sealed in. You see people go up there and, you know, they take a look inside, see if there's anything in there, but that's all sealed. And this is, you know, that's how much they cut off the top of this mountain. Back in the 1870s, 1880s, into the 1890s. Just took it off. So, and the bathhouse is just over this just over this way. So, okay. Okay, this is the number 14, Ishkooda number 14 bathhouse remains. These are the foundation remains. This was a big bathhouse, and this was constructed mid-1940s, possibly 1945, just say on average. And when they started modifying everything, so the miners would have a bathhouse, because the nearest bathhouse was, for the miners, was way down on the north side of the mountain, in between the number 13 and 14 mines. So company made it more convenient for them to come up here and use the bathhouse up here for changing when they went into the mines and when they came back out. And this is a foundation remain. I'm not sure what this is. This could have been, as far as I know, this could have been a boiler house, or it was something. Not really sure. There's no pictures. So it's hard to really say, but it definitely was something to do with the bathhouse, of course. And back over through these trees and freaking jungle and everything, straight back through this way, just almost on top of the mountain, sitting back there in the woods, is a gigantic electrical substation that's still intact, still has all the gigantic insulators, the fencing, the signs. I think it says 44,000 volts, still there in the woods. They just left it. So this was they had an electrical substation with their lines coming up here, of course, to run electricity to the bathhouse and the mines. Everything was electrically operated by this time instead of steam. But this is the bathhouse, and they said it's really disappointing, man. They got people come up here. They don't even have any signs that I know of that says, hey, this was the bathhouse. So people might come up here going, wow, what's this? So now these were probably actually stairs to go up into the bathhouse. And of course, this was back in the time of segregation. And so you'd probably have one section of the bathhouse that was for the black miners, and the other section for the white miners. I mean, who knows which section was what, but you have two sets of stairs right here. This one right here, and this one right here, and probably the bathhouse was just cut in two. And everything was segregated back then, even the mines. So that's just the way it was. And this was all right here. This was all parking area. All this, there were no trees, no trees at all. And the bridge is right over this way. And the miners would just drive their cars right up here and park. Very convenient. And then they could report either going through that cut or go downstairs over there to get on the skip cars to go down into the mine. So, okay. Okay, this is the bathhouse right here, and this would have been the big parking area right here. And of course, when they built this bathhouse back in the early 40s, by the mid 40s, they had to level all this out. You know, it's hard to imagine what the topography of the south side of the mountain looked, because we're on the south side, but they had to level all of this out to make this. But this right here is the way right here to where the bridge was, and this was a road right here. Folks could just drive their car right across the bridge, and you can actually see right here, it actually says, "Danger, do not trespass on this bridge." So that's pretty interesting. I mean, it's hard to imagine they left these actually intact when they tore everything down. So, but here's another one right here. So right here. And right here are the bridge foundations. Right here, that's a concrete foundation right here, and you can't really see it, but there's the haulage cut beyond that wall right there. And this is where the mine carts, the railway for the haulage cars or skip cars would have come right out this way. But this would have been the beginning of the bridge, or one side of it, and it would have gone straight across over there. And that trail right there, like I said, that was a road. So, but anyway, and they would have just driven across the bridge and just parked their cars right here. So, okay. Okay, this trail right here on top of the mountain, this was actually a road that TCI created back in the 40s for the miners, and it's a trail now. Park vehicles, you know, drive this trail, but this is a trail on top of the mountain, and this was built back in the 40s, and it heads off to the west down here a little bit, and then there's a cut. And of course it's overgrown and everything, but the road would kind of loop down the north side of the mountain and actually go into what's today's modern current Spalding Ishkooda Road. And the hoist house is back way down on the north side of the mountain, and the remains of the tipple as with it. But this was actually a road that was built for the miners so they could drive their cars up here on top of the mountain and actually drive them right down to the 14 mine, or even to the 13 mine, to the maintenance buildings, and they could just drive over that bridge to the bathhouse. So anyway, little piece of history here. Okay, that's looking back to the west to the number 14, 13 mines. And this is the trail right here on top of the mountain, and it's a cut. And this right here is this is what TCI cut out right here. This would have been the road that came up from the north side of the mountain, and it would have come right up here, and they cut right through this to make a road for the miners and, you know, materials, trucks, supplies, whatever, to come up here on the north side of the mountain, and to just drive right down there to the bathhouse or the maintenance areas. But this was the road right here that was cut out back in the 1940s, and never been back in here. But looks like the park has made cut this out maybe, but this is the road right here, and it just loops down the north side of the mountain right here. So this is the remains of it, and I'm not really sure. This was another road that they built, but I'm not really sure where that goes. You can see where they had cut this out and graded it for a road, so I'm not sure where that would have gone. But this was the main road right here for the miners to get up the mountain. So, okay.